You waiting to be picked up?
Yeah, I'm waiting for an Uber.
Should use transporter.
Yeah. Wait, what?
One to beam up?
Hey guys, Steven Zurita here with another VFX tutorial on how to do the Star Trek 2009 J.J. Abrams teleporter effect. Now, this movie's series has been out for about 7 years now. There's no shortage of tutorials showing how to do this effect, but I'm going to do something that most other tutorials, at least all the ones that I've seen, don't show you how to do, and that's how to actually get the spinning particles that make this effect so cool to actually go behind your actor. So let me show you what I mean when I say that. Most tutorials I've seen show you how to, they'll make a nice twirling effect like this. The particles are twirling, but you have this really dense, opaque core in the middle, and they don't actually go behind anything. They composite in front. And you can see this is something you can easily just rig together in CC Particle World with just a couple tweaked settings. That's not right. Other tutorials will show you how to make these kind of swirly sprites that disappear behind a certain Z value, and if you look at her torso right here, it does look like these are going behind her, but if you look above her head, they're disappearing before they get behind her, and if you look at her skirt, they go behind her and then disappear. So it doesn't quite line up. It's more of an illusion. I'm going to show you how to actually make these particles go behind her specifically, and I've got the actual effect right here, and you can see I was able to actually, get these particles behind her. You can see bits, this is her skirt, and they go in front and then behind, and then they disappear. So let's show you how to do that. I'm going to get rid of all these examples right here and show you what my comp looks like. We have a layer for Taylor on a green screen, and I recommend you do this with a green screen, otherwise you're going to have a lot of roto work. We have Sasha and Taylor, and Taylor's just there to give Sasha something to react to as an actor. And then we have an empty plate where neither of them are in the shot, so let's get started. First, we're going to key out Taylor. I'm going to grab my pen tool here, and then just draw a garbage mat around her. All right, and then let's solo this layer for now. We're gonna go into key light. I'm gonna breeze through this really quick because this isn't a tutorial on how to do keying. It's more for how to do the particle effect, but you know the drill. Pick your color, and then I'm gonna go to screen matte. I did a lot of this in my Zio tutorial if you want to see something similar looking. Kind of adjust the color there. That looks good. Then go into the screen matte settings, clip white, bring that down, try and bring her dress back. And then I clip the black up just a bit. Here's our final result. We have this black outline I'm not a fan of. Let's get rid of that. Let's shrink it 1 pixel. Let's do 2 pixels. And then soften it 1 pixel. There we go. That gets rid of the outline. And let's leave the replace color method at source, because then we get some nice greens back into her dress. And her watch disappears, but honestly, there's so much happening in this, that's not even a problem. But if you want to, you can roto the watch back in. But that's not what this tutorial is about, is it? So we have Taylor nice and keyed. Then we need to get rid of her in this plate with Sasha. And I'm going to just draw a rectangular mask right down the middle, hit MM, set it to subtract, and I actually chose this tree as where I'm going to draw the mask because it's kind of a nice divider and it's easier to hide the mask line there. So I'm going to set this back to subtract and then feather it out some. That looks good. And then we have our plate underneath, so that's a nice composited image, and you can't even tell that Taylor is green screened, and you have to look really close at the watch to see it's disappearing. But like I said, so much stuff's happening, you won't even notice. All right, how do we make these particles? Okay, you're gonna need a couple things. One, you're gonna need a new layer, solid. And let's call it particular. And 1920 by 1080, that's good. Doesn't matter what color it is. So it's orange today. Okay, Trapcode Particular. You're going to need this plugin to do this effect. It took me about 5 years to figure it out because I didn't have the plugin, and when I finally did get it and learned more about it, you just trust me, you need Particular to do this. So I usually don't do third-party plugins, but for this one, unfortunately, that's what you need. All right, we're gonna put the particles right in the middle of her for now, and we're gonna set the emitter type to box. And we'll leave it alone for now so you can get a better feel of what's happening later. You can do a couple of these steps in different orders, but I'm going to do it in a specific order so you can see exactly what's happening behind the scenes. We're going to make a new null object, and we're going to make a new light. We're going to call this light motion path 1. And it's important you have this exact spelling and spacing and capitalization. Okay, so let's make our null a 3D layer. Let's also put it right in the middle of Taylor. And we're going to parent our motion path to the null, and we're going to go hit P on motion path and 0 everything out. All right, so now that makes the motion path and the null at the very exact same point. We're going to move the motion path light out a bit, just beyond Taylor's body right there, basically the width of her body. And then we're going to go to our null, and you see if we rotate this, it rotates the motion path light as well. You can see how it's going around in a 3D space. So you might be seeing what I'm getting at here. Let's add an expression to the Y rotation. Alt-click time times 390. Now that number value is going to be different for every shot. Depends on how close or far you are or the mood of the scene. Sometimes in the movies the particles are slower, sometimes they're faster. For this specific shot, I need 390. Okay. So just to give you an idea of what's happening, let's skip to the physics tab of our Trapcode Particular, open up the air tab, and use motion path 1, and I'm going to solo it. So basically they're following the path that the light is going in, and you can see them swirling around there. So we're getting close, but that's key to this effect. There's several ways to get it, but in my experience, this has been the best way. Sometimes you can, make the box and then rotate them using Y rotation. You just rotate the entire box, but that looks a little too uniform. This gives it a bit of variety, and you can mess up your particles more, and it just gives you more options, I think. Let's undo the motion path. You get an idea of what's happening now. What I need to do is set it up. So I'm going to set up a couple other things. I'm going to take the emitter size. I'm going to 0 out my X and Z for now, and bring the Y up to where it's covering her entire body and a little bit beyond it. Star Trek beyond it. What? Topical. And we're going to take the velocity, set that to 0. So now they're just in a line. Okay. Motion path, it's back on. And I'm toggling this on and off so you can see what I'm doing and understand the effect more. So the particles are going around again. It's not quite looking right because we just have these dots going around here. The effect in the movie is got these really cool particle trails. Well, we're going to use auxiliary system to create those particle trails. Open it up, set it to continuously, and we're getting something there. Set the particles to second, just bring it up a ton, and we're starting to get the idea. Color from main, 100%. These are going to be white. And let's mess with the size. So again, it depends on how close your shot is. For this shot, the size of the auxiliary particles and the main particles are all going to be 3. And the life for both of them are going to be 1.1 seconds. And again, it depends entirely on each shot. So auxiliary life 1.1. And that makes it to where they last a long time. Now, even though we started off our particles right in the middle of Taylor, they're twirling off to the side. Well, that's because they start here and then they follow the motion path. So that's just a part of the effect. To correct that, all you do is go back up to the top of your particular effect and then just move them over on the position XY. And you're going to notice, well, okay, yeah, they're swirling, but it just looks like a straight tube. There's a lot of variety in the Star Trek effect. Well, here's where we add that variety. Let's solo the layer so we can see what's happening a little bit better. And we're going to just mess with the emitter X and Z. And again, these numbers depend on the type of shot. The closer you are, the higher the numbers will be, but I found that 70 and 70 on X and Z for this effect give it a good bit of variety and randomness there. Even though now that they're looking a little more random, I want a bit more jaggediness to them. Well, that's easy to add to. Let's go to our air physics, turbulence field, and effect position, and we're just going to wiggle these around a bit by moving the position value to about 30. That looks pretty good. And then, let's add some more particles. Because basically so many of these happen to where they just cover her up and she disappears and then they disappear. That's looking really good. All right, just need to change a couple more things. Let's close the air. We don't need that anymore, I think. Auxiliary system, opacity over life. We're gonna just use the normal fade away preset. They just fade away starting from when they're born. Same thing with the main particles, opacity over life. And just so you can see what I'm picking, you have all these nice presets right there. Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's get the part that makes this effect extremely accurate, the obscuration behind specifically Taylor. So we have this nice keyed image of Taylor, and unfortunately we can't just use this layer. We have to pre-comp it. But that's just an easy fix. We just pre-comp it right there. And then we make it a 3D layer. And now we have the two of them. And she's showing up as black. We can't see her at all, even though she is there. The reason that is because we have this light in the motion path. So that's a real easy fix. And it's kind of fun. You can see the light going around her and behind her. It's basically illuminating her and casting her in shadow. All you do to fix that, hit AA on your layer, or you can open up all the triangle menus, but AA is the keyboard shortcut, and turn accept shadows and accept lights off, and then she's just going to stay there, which is nice. Okay, let's look back at our two layers. Let's go into particular. We're going to go down to rendering, or I'm sorry, visibility. We're going to go down to visibility and select the Taylor pre-comp as the obscuration layer. And boom, right there the particles are going behind her. You can see it right there. I'm going to turn her off. We have a nice silhouette exactly where Taylor is. So that's one of the two secrets to this effect. One is the motion path tool, and two is the obscuration tool. And that's how you do it. So I'm going to show you a couple more things to make this look nice and nifty and cool, and get you around a couple hiccups you might notice, and show you how to get a couple really good details. If you're looking very close, you're going to notice that all your particles start in the same spot. Well, that's kind of boring. And also, even though we've added a lot of variety, if you look very closely at the official effects from the film, they follow the contours of each person being transported very closely. So they should be narrower here at the head. Maybe they would some be just around the arms, narrower at the waist, narrower at the legs. If an arm was outstretched, we would have some just around the arm that was outstretched. So I'm going to show you how to fix both those problems and add both those details if you want to do that. And the nice thing is that you can have up to 9 motion paths to let you do that. Let's first shrink this down to where it doesn't cover her head, because we're going to show you how to do the head and make a narrower motion path very easily. So we're going to go up, shrink the emitter size, and let's turn Taylor's layer back on. Turn the sound off. Shrink the emitter size and move it down. All right, good. Now let's go to the top layer, or the top view, and this is a top view of our particles. This brownish line is where Taylor is in 3D space. A really good trick to get rid of all the particles showing up at the same spot, and right now they're all showing up around 3 o'clock here, is to have them show up behind her, since you have that obscuration layer. And it'll be a lot easier to hide that whole they all are born in the same position thing. And you can also hide that, and I forgot to mention this earlier, take the life random percentage, Set that up all the way to 100. Because when they disappear, they'll all disappear in the same spot too, unless you have your life random to 100. So when it's random, they disappear at random places. So let's make her particles start behind her, which would be up here at 12 o'clock. To do that, you just move the layer down. So now the particles start at 12 o'clock, and you can see that by scrubbing through the timeline. Although now the particles aren't where Taylor was. So if I go back to our active camera view, they're off. Well, that's an easy fix. Just go back to top. First, let's center it up on the Z position. There's good. And then go to the active camera, center it up on the XY. And the nice thing about the obscuration layer is it just slides right behind her. All right, so I move forward ahead. We did it too much. There. All right, that looks good. So now with the obscuration layer, you can't tell that they're all born in the same spot. Very good fix. Now to, here, let's actually just turn the Sasha and the plate layers off, so I don't have a bunch of soloed layers here. I'm going to color code these all aqua. Nope, that's too similar. Let's pick yellow. Now I'm going to select them all and the motion path as well. This should also be yellow. Taylor comp, actually, let's leave that aqua. So these three are what's driving our effect. We're going to duplicate them, move them up, and it automatically makes it into motion path 2, which is very convenient for us. Let's make these red. So this is going to be a second instance of particles, and you can't tell yet, but if I go in and start moving them up, you can see the copy of particles there. So we have our null and we have our motion path. Let's start changing things around. Go into particular. Go back down to your physics. It's somewhere above our auxiliary system. That's some very Star Trek lingo right there, auxiliary system. Air. All right, we're going to set this to motion path number 2. Nothing's changed yet because we haven't changed the motion path, but if we move the X value in, you can see them start to narrow out. And then that's how you get different diameters for your particle orbits. And then you just, let's shrink the emitter size down. Move up. Maybe less particles, slightly less. And let's see. Now basically we need to reach a point in this effect. Let's move it up even more. Cover the top of her head. You need to reach a point in this effect where they completely cover her up. And you can do that by adding more particles, but you can also do that by adding the glow, which ideally you should do a couple steps earlier, but I'm just remembering it now. So we're going to go to Stylize Glow. And about 30 pixels works for this effect. And so you can colorize it a way I like to colorize. We're going to go into Colorama. This is a good plugin to get used to. Input phase alpha. Output phase ramp gray. That just basically gives you a white to gray gradient that is very easy to color correct with curves, or in this case, color balance. And I'm going to use a color yellow by moving the blue balance down. So midtone blues -100, highlight blues -75, and I'm going to add the smallest bit of red, smallest bit, just to give it a hint of gold. Preserve luminosity. Now let's leave that off. We don't want it to be too strong. The glow is going to be a little more subtle. And let's take all those glow layers and apply them to the first instance. So this should have been done before I duplicated and made more motion paths, but we're doing it now. There we go. That looks pretty cool. And let's set these to screen because they need to blend at the end of all this, and right now they don't. Screen. Now they do. There's Taylor inside, and look, she's nested right inside. So we need to make it to where she's completely covered up by these, and these particles aren't quite doing that. So let's make more. There we go. Let's make it an even 1100. And you can make as many of these different motion paths and different layers as you want. If you want narrower hips or just to follow the legs or the arms, like I said. But just, you get the idea. Torso, head. So around right here, let's actually set keyframes for our particular layers. And then go to about 2 frames in and set them to 0. So they start, they ramp up, and let's look at these keyframes here. And we're gonna leave them there at that value for a couple frames. So we'll keyframe again. And then move forward a couple frames. And this is pretty arbitrary, just whatever you need for your specific shot. And we're gonna move them back down to 0. And because the particles take some time to die off, they will remain for a little bit before they die off. Now we need to get rid of Taylor underneath, which is pretty easy. Now you would think, oh, let's just fade her away in the pre-comp. Well, the one limit of the Z obscuration layer is it doesn't deal with anything more than fully there and not there at all. So I could have this at 51%, and there should be some opacity and see-throughness, but nothing's changed. It's either she's there or she's not as far as these particles are concerned. We don't see hints of the particles behind her. And then if I go to 49%, the particles just think she's not there at all and show you the entirety of their path. So you can't fade her away. You basically just have to cut her away. So we're going to go to the point where the particles have her completely covered or close to it. So right there, it's pretty hard to see her. One more. And we're just going to cut her. Boom. We're also going to help things out by adding color correction, because we can still kind of see where she disappears. There's a bit of a silhouette there, and then it's gone on the very next frame. So let's hide that a little bit. We're going to go to Effect, Color Correction, Exposure, and Color Balance. So let's go back to about... Ooh, let's turn Taylor back on. Right there, the particles are starting to wrap around her. So we're going to set keyframes for both those effects. Exposure, and we're going to mess with reds and blues again. We're going to go to right before she disappears, and we're going to make it really hot and really bright. So there, and let's color it basically the same we had before. Something similar. So -70, hints of red, and we get yellow by making the blue value negative, because yellow is the opposite of blue. Midtone should be -100, and the highlight should be -75. And a bit of red highlight as well, and that just makes it look a little hot. You can see there. So if I go back in here to that frame, she's starting to look harder to see under there because she's very bright like the particles around her. And we're going to make another instance of this Taylor comp. We're going to actually, let's reveal it in the project. Let's duplicate that comp and replace it. And if I hold with my mouse and then hold Alt on the keyboard, I can replace it there. So this is an entirely different instance. So whatever I do in here isn't going to affect Taylor comp 3. So we're actually going to let this stay on the entire time. You can see it's on there. And we're actually going to keyframe it away manually on the opacity. And then, let's see, let's go back into Taylor Comp 3. All the glowing or the color changes happen at around frame 15. Go back into Tutorial Comp. On frame 15, we're going to set the opacity to 0. And then Alt begin bracket and Alt end bracket. at the 0 points just to make it nice and neat. So we have this, and then it goes away. What am I doing? I am making a bit of a glow around her. So if I go to Fast Blur, which in the latest edition is now in the obsolete category, turn on Repeat Edge Pixels. And we're going to move it up to, let's make it 30. We're going to keyframe them, and they're going to be 0 at the 0 opacity points at the first one. The second one is going to remain. And you know what? Let's set this to screen. Or you know what? Let's set it to add. So basically it makes it look like these particles are really making her glow. And then all these bright things happening make it to where when she disappears, we can't even see in there anymore. And then there's a small residual glow for a couple frames. And then the particles disappear. And then now that she's not there, you can see the particles going all the way around. All right, so the particles are still there at the end of the comp. There's a couple ways you can fix it. You can move these around and then start moving the keyframes here to where everything disappears at the right times, depending on your shot. Or you can take the easy way out. You can just make your comp longer. I'm just gonna make it 2 seconds longer. And drag these layers out to match. So now our particles have time to disappear. All right, that's the tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. This channel is all about proving geekdom inspires art, and I think this does that by showing you how to do this really cool effect from Star Trek, which is one of my favorite geeky things. And by watching this tutorial, you've just made your own art potentially better. So there we go. Mission accomplished. If you have any questions or requests for other tutorials you'd like me to do to help you out on your own journey, leave them in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like it. I'm all about bringing these really cool quality nerdy videos to YouTube. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week. I'm Steven Zarita, and punch it.